Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human colony ship Defiance, staring at the cold metal walls that had been his prison for 3 years. Outside the thick windows, the stars of the Kepler system burned like distant candles, beautiful but unreachable. The ship drifted in space, waiting for orders from their alien masters like a dog waiting for scraps. Jake was 42 years old and had been fighting the aliens for most of his adult life. His face showed the marks of too many battles and too little hope. His brown hair had started turning gray at the edges, and his green eyes had lost their shine years ago. Today felt different, though, like something was about to break. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant walked onto the bridge carrying a data pad. Her face was pale and her hands shook slightly as she approached Jake. Lisa was 35, with short black hair and dark eyes that usually sparkled with intelligence. Today those eyes looked hollow. "Captain," she said quietly, "we just got a message from New Terra colony." Jake turned to face her. New Terra was one of the largest human settlements, home to almost 50,000 people, men, women, and children who had tried to build new lives far from Earth. The aliens had promised them safety as long as they followed the rules and stayed in their assigned areas. "What kind of message?" Jake asked. Though he already feared the answer, Lisa handed him the data pad. "They're all dead, sir. Every single one of them." Jake felt his heart stop for a moment. The data pad showed pictures that made his stomach turn. Burning buildings, empty streets, and bodies scattered everywhere. The Zephyrian aliens had used their bioweapons to kill every living thing on the planet. Not just the humans, but every plant and animal, too. They had turned a green world into a dead rock in less than 24 hours. "Why?" Jake whispered. "The official report says unauthorized expansion beyond designated zones," Lisa replied. "But the real reason is in the classified section. They're calling it the final correction." Jake read the alien document with growing horror. The Zephyrian collective had decided that humans were becoming too numerous and too difficult to control. They planned to reduce human population across the galaxy to what they called manageable numbers. New Terra was just the beginning. Dr. Alex Carter entered the bridge at that moment. Alex was a thin man with messy blonde hair and bright blue eyes hidden behind thick glasses. He had been studying captured alien technology in secret for months, trying to understand how their masters thought and what made them so powerful. "Captain, I heard about New Terra," Alex said. "I think it's time I showed you what I've been working on." Jake nodded and followed Alex to the science lab. The room was filled with alien devices that hummed and glowed with strange energy. Alex led him to a computer terminal showing complex brain scans. "I've been studying human and alien neural patterns," Alex explained. "What I found will shock you. Human brains are completely different from every other known species in the galaxy." The screen showed 2 brain scans side by side. One looked organized and neat with clear patterns that repeated over and over. The other looked chaotic, with connections firing in all directions like lightning in a storm. "The organized one is Zephyrian," Alex continued. "All the alien races think in similar ways. They evolved for cooperation and following orders. Their minds work like hive computers, efficient but predictable." He pointed to the chaotic brain scan. "This is human. We evolve differently. We think as individuals, solve problems through creativity, and adapt to stress in ways that would drive other species insane. When most aliens face impossible situations, they shut down. When humans face impossible situations, we get creative." Jake stared at the scans. "What does this mean?" "It means they're afraid of us," Alex said simply. "They've kept us weak because they know what we're capable of when pushed too far. But I don't think they understand just how dangerous we really are." At that moment, Commander Ben Hayes contacted the ship from his hidden base in the asteroid belt. Ben was the unofficial leader of the human resistance, a network of fighters and spies scattered across human space. He was a big man with graying hair and scars that told stories of battles against impossible odds. "Jake, are you getting reports from other colonies?" Ben's voice crackled over the communication system. "We heard about New Terra," Jake replied grimly. "It's not just New Terra," Ben said. 17 colonies hit in the past month. Same bioweapons, same excuse about unauthorized expansion. They're systematically wiping us out." Jake felt something cold settle in his chest. Not fear, but something harder and more dangerous. For 30 years, humanity had tried to survive by keeping their heads down and following alien rules. They had accepted smaller territories, fewer resources, and constant humiliation because they believed they had no choice. Lisa returned to the bridge with more reports. Human settlements across the galaxy were being destroyed or forcibly relocated. Families were being separated. Children were being taken from their parents for what the aliens called genetic correction programs. Jake looked out the window again at the burning funeral pyres on New Terra. 50,000 people who had just wanted to live in peace. Farmers and teachers and shopkeepers and children who had never hurt anyone, all dead because they had planted crops outside their assigned boundaries. Something inside Jake Morrison broke that day, but not in the way his alien masters expected. When humans break, they don't shatter like glass. They break like dams, releasing forces that have been building pressure for far too long. He opened a communication channel to every human ship, station, and colony in known space. Thousands of people across hundreds of star systems heard his voice as he spoke words that would change everything. "My fellow humans," Jake said, his voice carrying across the void between stars. "For 30 years we have been slaves in all but name. We have accepted their rules, lived in their cages, and hoped that if we stayed quiet enough they might let us survive." He paused, looking at the images of New Terra burning on his screen. "Today that ends. Today we stop running. Today we stop hiding. Today we stop being afraid of them and make them afraid of us. Today we say no more." Across human space, people heard those words and felt something awaken inside them that had been sleeping for 3 decades. The galaxy was about to learn why ancient alien records once called humans the nightmare species. The rebellion had begun. 3 days after Jake Morrison's message spread across human space, something changed in every human settlement from the outer rim to Earth's moon. It started small like a spark catching dry wood, but grew into something that made alien overseers nervous in ways they had never experienced before. Kyle Roberts was a mining supervisor on Titan 7, a small station carved into an asteroid in the Vega system. Kyle was a big man with calloused hands and a quiet way of speaking that made other workers listen when he talked. For 5 years, he had watched Zephyrian guards treat his 300 workers like animals, taking the best ore and leaving humans with scraps and broken equipment. The morning after Morrison's broadcast, Kyle looked at his reflection in the metal mirror of his quarters and saw something different in his own brown eyes. The fear was still there, but underneath it burned something new. "Something dangerous, boys," he announced to his crew that morning. "We're not mining for them today." The Zephyrian supervisor, a tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms, immediately began shrieking orders in its harsh language. Kyle walked up to the alien calmly and spoke in a voice so quiet it was almost a whisper. "I said we're not mining for you today." When the alien reached for its weapon, Kyle grabbed a mining laser and pointed it at the creature's chest. Around the mine, 300 human workers picked up their tools and surrounded the dozen Zephyrian guards. For the first time in 5 years, the aliens were outnumbered. What happened next spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The humans didn't kill their overseers, though they easily could have. Instead, they locked them in a storage room and began doing something that terrified Alien Command more than violence would have. They began working together with a precision and creativity that no other species had ever demonstrated. Kyle's team turned mining equipment into weapons and defense systems in ways that defied alien understanding. They welded blast doors into mobile shields, converted ore processors into projectile launchers, and transformed the entire mining station into a fortress using nothing but salvaged parts and human ingenuity. Meanwhile, on Earth's moon, Dr. Rachel Stone made a discovery that explained what was happening to human behavior across the galaxy. Rachel was a small woman with red hair and green eyes who had spent her career studying how different species reacted to extreme stress. Her laboratory was hidden in the old lunar colonies where humans had lived before the aliens came. "It's incredible," she told her research team as she showed them brain scans from human rebels across known space. When other species face extinction-level stress, their neural activity becomes more organized and predictable. They fall back on programmed responses and hierarchical thinking. She switched to a scan taken from Kyle Roberts during the Titan 7 uprising. The image showed a human brain firing in patterns that looked like controlled chaos. Humans do the opposite. Under extreme stress, we become more creative, more adaptable, and more willing to take risks. It's like our brains unlock hidden potential when we're pushed beyond our breaking point. I'm calling it adaptive berserker mode. Her team stared at the scans in amazement. The human brain under extreme stress looked nothing like the neat, organized patterns of alien thinking. It looked wild and unpredictable, but also incredibly effective at solving complex problems in real time. Captain Morrison received reports from across human space that confirmed Rachel's research. On the farming world of New Eden, 2,000 humans had held off an alien army for 6 days using nothing but farm equipment and improvised explosives. On the orbital city of Haven Station, human workers had taken control of the entire facility by convincing the station's computer systems to malfunction in exactly the right ways. But the most shocking news came from Proxima Station, the largest Zephyrian administrative hub in human space. Morrison had led a fleet of stolen cargo ships in what everyone expected to be a suicide attack on the heavily defended facility. Instead of attacking directly, the humans had done something that left alien strategists completely baffled. They surrounded the station and began taking it apart piece by piece using maintenance pods and industrial equipment. For 72 hours straight, human crews worked without rest, methodically dismantling the station's outer defenses and support systems. The Zephyrians called for reinforcements, but their rescue fleet arrived to find Proxima Station floating in pieces, while human ships salvaged everything useful from the wreckage. The humans had turned a fortress into spare parts using tools designed for peaceful construction work. Colonel Sam Turner watched the destruction of Proxima Station from his hiding place in the Neptune system. Sam was a former military officer who had served as humanity's liaison to the alien collective before the rebellion began. He was a tall man with gray hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing important. Sam knew something that made the human uprising even more dangerous than it appeared. In their arrogance, the aliens had given humans complete access to detailed maps and technical specifications for every major alien facility in the galaxy. They had believed humans were too broken and hopeless to ever use such information effectively. Now those same maps were being distributed to human rebels everywhere. Every weak point in alien defenses, every backup system and security protocol, every supply route and communication relay was being studied by human minds that specialized in finding creative solutions to impossible problems. They made a mistake, Sam told his team as they prepared to broadcast critical intelligence to human cells across the galaxy. They gave us the keys to their entire civilization and assumed we'd never be smart enough to use them. The rebellion was spreading faster than any alien authority could contain it. What terrified alien commanders was not just that humans were fighting back, but how they were fighting. Every human attack was different, using tactics that no alien military academy had ever taught because no other species had ever thought to try them. On the prison moon of Kepler-7, human inmates had somehow convinced their alien guards that a reactor malfunction required immediate evacuation. When the guards fled, the humans quietly took control of the facility and began broadcasting rebel communications across 3 star systems. At the research station on Europa, human scientists had convinced alien administrators that they needed to conduct experiments on the station's gravity generators. The experiments succeeded so well that the entire facility was pulled into Jupiter's atmosphere, taking several alien warships with it. Admiral Kethmore, Supreme Commander of the Zephyrian Space Fleet, read reports from across the galaxy with growing confusion, and something he had never experienced before in his long life. The emotion had no name in his language because his species had evolved beyond the need for it millions of years ago. Humans called it fear. "How many facilities have we lost?" he asked his staff. 47 confirmed destroyed, 16 captured, and 32 reported missing or not responding to communications. His aide reported. "But sir, the humans aren't just attacking randomly. They're targeting our supply lines, communication relays, and administrative centers with surgical precision." Kethmore stared at the tactical display showing human rebel activity across the galaxy. The attacks formed patterns that made no sense according to every military strategy his people had developed over millions of years. "They're not following any known rules of warfare," he said quietly. "It's like they're making up new rules as they fight." His aide, a young officer who had never seen combat before the human uprising, asked the question that was haunting every alien commander in the galaxy. "Sir, what if we can't predict what they'll do because they don't know what they'll do until they do it?" Kethmore felt the cold touch of fear grow stronger in his chest. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a species was fighting a war using creativity and adaptation instead of established doctrine and hierarchical command structures. The humans were not just rebelling. They were evolving their methods of rebellion in real time, becoming more dangerous with every passing day. The galaxy was beginning to understand that it had underestimated the species it had kept as slaves for 30 years. Humanity was not broken. It had been sleeping, and now it was awake and very, very angry. 6 weeks after the rebellion began, the galaxy learned why ancient alien databases contained warnings about something called the nightmare species. Those old records spoke of creatures that fought wars in ways that violated every known principle of civilized combat, beings who became more dangerous when outnumbered and more creative when facing impossible odds. Captain Lisa, Grant stood on the bridge of her converted cargo ship watching 3 Zephyrian battleships approach her small fleet. Lisa had been promoted to fleet commander after showing an unusual talent for turning merchant vessels into warships, using nothing but scrap metal and human imagination. Her short black hair was tied back and her dark eyes studied the tactical display with cold calculation. "How many ships do they have?" asked her second-in-command, a young engineer named Pete Johnson. "3 heavy cruisers with enough firepower to destroy a small moon," Lisa replied calmly. "We have 12 cargo haulers held together with spare parts and hope." Pete swallowed nervously. "Those aren't good odds, ma'am." Lisa smiled in a way that would have terrified any alien who understood human expressions. "Pete, you're thinking like them. They see 3 ships against 12 and expect us to run or surrender. But they don't understand how humans count. What happened next became legendary among human resistance fighters across the galaxy. Instead of engaging the battleships directly, Lisa's fleet scattered in 12 different directions, each ship broadcasting false distress signals and fake tactical data designed to confuse alien sensors. While the Zephyrian ships chased shadows and sensor ghosts, Lisa's engineers were busy with something the aliens never expected. They had been quietly releasing clouds of industrial chemicals and metallic dust from their cargo holds, substances that were completely harmless by themselves but became highly explosive when mixed in the right proportions. By the time the alien commanders realized what was happening, their ships were flying through an invisible minefield that stretched across millions of cubic kilometers of space. Lisa's fleet had turned empty space itself into a weapon using nothing more dangerous than mining supplies and fertilizer. The first Zephyrian battleship exploded when its engines ignited the chemical cloud around it. The second ship tried to escape but flew directly into a concentrated area of metallic dust that shredded its armor like sandpaper. The third ship survived long enough to send a terrified message to alien high command before Lisa's makeshift torpedo boats finished it off. Meanwhile, on the fortress world of Kepler Prime, Major Danny Clark was proving that humans could think in ways that broke every rule of military science. Danny was a quiet man with brown hair and steady hands who had been a prison guard before the rebellion began. Now he commanded 5,000 human prisoners in the most impossible siege in galactic history. Kepler Prime was built to be unbreakable. The alien fortress was carved deep into a mountain and protected by energy shields that could withstand direct bombardment from space. The prison complex held over 50,000 humans in conditions that barely kept them alive. Danny studied the fortress for 3 days before announcing his plan to the other prisoners. "We're not going to attack it," he said simply. "We're going to move it." The other prisoners thought he had lost his mind until Danny explained his idea. The fortress was strong, but the mountain it was built into was just rock and metal. Using stolen gravity manipulators and working in teams around the clock, they could slowly shift the mountain's position until the fortress was in the path of the system's asteroid belt. For 2 weeks, 5,000 humans worked with mechanical precision that amazed even themselves. They divided into shifts, with one group operating the gravity equipment while another group provided lookout duty, and a third group rested for exactly 4 hours before rotating to the next task. No one complained, no one gave up, and no one questioned the impossible nature of what they were attempting. Dr. Alex Carter arrived at Kepler Prime during the second week of the siege and immediately began studying what the prisoners were accomplishing. Alex had been traveling from battlefield to battlefield, documenting the changes occurring in human behavior under extreme stress. "This is unprecedented," he told Danny as they watched teams of prisoners carefully adjusting gravitational fields to nudge a mountain through space. "You're not just moving that fortress. You're doing precision engineering that should require supercomputers and years of planning." Danny shrugged. "We don't have supercomputers or years of planning. We have 5,000 people who are tired of being prisoners and enough anger to move mountains. Alex's instruments confirmed what he was seeing but couldn't explain. The human prisoners were performing calculations in their heads that should have been impossible, coordinating their efforts with timing that machines would have envied, and maintaining focus for hours at a time without showing signs of mental fatigue. It's like you've all become part of a single organism dedicated to solving this one problem, Alex said in amazement. Maybe we have, Danny replied. Maybe that's what humans do when we decide something has to change. We become whatever we need to become to make it happen. On the third week, the fortress began its final approach to the asteroid belt. The alien defenders inside had realized what was happening, but found themselves completely helpless to stop it. Their weapons were designed to fight ships and armies, not to prevent their own fortress from being relocated by angry prisoners with construction equipment. The reports from Kepler Prime reached alien command centers just as similar impossible victories were being reported from across human space. On New Chicago, human rebels had convinced an entire alien garrison to surrender by broadcasting psychological warfare programs that Dr. Rachel Stone had designed based on her studies of alien mental weaknesses. The broadcasts used human music, art, and literature to create emotional responses that alien minds were not equipped to handle. Species that had lived in rigid hierarchies for millions of years found themselves experiencing concepts like individual creativity and personal freedom for the first time. Many alien soldiers suffered complete mental breakdowns and had to be hospitalized. Engineer Kelly Brooks had taken psychological warfare to an even more devastating level. From her hidden base in the Centauri system, Kelly and her team had infiltrated the galactic communication network that connected every major alien civilization. Instead of destroying the network, they had done something far worse. They flooded it with human cultural content, transmitting everything from children's drawings to symphony orchestras to amateur poetry written by homesick colonists. The effect on alien civilizations was catastrophic. The Andromedans, master strategists who had ruled through superior planning for thousands of years, found their predictive models completely useless when exposed to human art that celebrated chaos and individual expression. The crystalline Vorthak, who communicated through shared consciousness across their entire empire, began experiencing something they called the madness of singular thought after being exposed to human music that emphasized personal emotion over collective harmony. Even the mighty Zephyrians, who had dominated the galaxy through superior organization and discipline, found their command structure breaking down as individual soldiers began questioning orders after reading human stories about freedom and personal choice. Admiral Kethmore received a message from the Galactic Council. That would have been unthinkable 6 weeks earlier. The ruling species of the galaxy, creatures who had never negotiated with anyone as equals, were asking to meet with human representatives. They want to negotiate, his aide reported with disbelief. The council is requesting formal talks with the human leadership. Kethmore looked at the tactical displays showing human activity across the galaxy. Every report told the same story. Humans were not just fighting back. They were winning in ways that violated every principle of warfare and strategy that had governed galactic civilization for millions of years. Set up the meeting, he said quietly, but understand this: we are no longer dealing with the species we thought we knew. These humans are something entirely different from what we expected. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the masters of the galaxy were afraid of their former slaves. The nightmare species had awakened, and nothing would ever be the same. The negotiations took place on Haven 7, a neutral trading station that floated in empty space between the territories of 3 different alien empires. The station had been built as a symbol of galactic cooperation, where different species could meet and resolve their differences through civilized discussion. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the station's corridors wearing a simple black uniform with no decorations or symbols of rank. Behind him walked Dr. Rachel Stone, Colonel Sam Turner, and Dr. Alex Carter. They looked like ordinary humans, nothing special or threatening about them. The alien representatives waiting in the main conference chamber were the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Admiral Kethmore represented the Zephyrian collective, his blue skin gleaming under the artificial lights. Beside him sat Thought Prime Zerath of the Andromedans, a creature that looked like living crystal filled with swirling lights. The Vorthak delegation consisted of 3 beings who shared a single consciousness and spoke in perfect unison. When the humans entered the room, something happened that had never occurred in the history of galactic diplomacy. The alien representatives, creatures who had ruled star empires for millions of years, instinctively moved back in their seats. Dr. Rachel Stone had spent months studying captured alien psychology and had made a discovery that explained their reaction. Every species in the Galactic Coalition had evolved beyond their original survival instincts. They had become so specialized in their roles and so dependent on their hierarchical systems that they had lost the ability to recognize and respond to true apex predators. Honored delegates, Admiral Kethmore began in the formal language of diplomatic protocol. We have come to discuss terms for ending this unfortunate conflict between our peoples. Jake Morrison sat down across from the alien delegation and smiled. It was not a friendly smile, but the kind of expression a wolf might wear when surrounded by sheep who still believed they were in charge. "Admiral," Jake said quietly, "let me save us all some time. We didn't come here to negotiate a return to the old system. We came here to explain the new reality." Colonel Sam Turner opened a briefcase and spread documents across the table. The papers contained detailed analyses of every major alien military installation, communication network, and supply chain in the galaxy. Information that should have been impossible for humans to obtain. For 30 years, you gave us access to your databases because you thought we were too stupid and broken to understand what we were seeing. Sam explained calmly. "You were wrong. We've been studying you, learning your weaknesses and preparing for this day since the moment you put us in chains." Thought Prime Zerath's crystal form flickered with confused lights. "Impossible. Our security systems are impenetrable. No primitive species could have bypassed our safeguards." Dr. Alex Carter laughed, a sound that seemed to make the aliens uncomfortable in ways they couldn't explain. "You're still thinking like a computer. Your security was designed to stop other artificial intelligences and hive minds. It was never designed to stop individual creativity and lateral thinking." He activated a holographic display that showed the Galactic Communication Network. Red markers indicated thousands of access points where humans had infiltrated alien systems using methods that violated every principle of computer security. "We didn't break your codes," Alex continued. "We convinced your systems to give us access by making them think we were supposed to be there. Your artificial intelligences are very smart, but they're not creative. They can't imagine solutions that don't already exist in their programming." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the human uprising continued to evolve in ways that terrified alien observers. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant had transformed her fleet of converted cargo ships into something unprecedented in galactic history. A nomadic civilization that existed entirely in space. Her ships had learned to survive by mining asteroids, raiding alien supply convoys, and rescuing human prisoners with surgical precision. They moved constantly, never staying in one place long enough for alien forces to find them, but always appearing where they were least expected. The most disturbing aspect of Lisa's fleet was how quickly they adapted alien technology to human needs. Zephyrian energy shields that had taken thousands of years to develop were being modified and improved by human engineers in a matter of months. Andromedan navigation systems were being enhanced in ways their creators had never imagined possible. "Your technology is impressive," Dr. Rachel Stone told the alien delegates, "but it's limited by your inability to think outside established parameters. You build things to work exactly as designed and never consider how they might be used differently." She showed them footage from one of Lisa's raids on a Zephyrian supply depot. The humans had used the aliens' own cargo handling equipment to dismantle their defenses, turning peaceful construction tools into weapons. By simply using them in ways their designers had never considered, the alien delegates watched in horror as human engineers took apart advanced alien weapons and rebuilt them into entirely different devices that were somehow more effective than the originals. Major Danny Clark's victory at Kepler Prime had become the most studied battle in recent galactic history. Military academies across alien space were trying to understand how human prisoners with no formal training had accomplished something that should have required decades of planning and resources they didn't possess. "You moved a mountain, Admiral," Kethmore said in disbelief. "You relocated an entire fortress using equipment designed for industrial construction." We moved a mountain because it needed to be moved, Jake replied simply. That's what humans do. When we decide something has to change, we find a way to change it, even if that way doesn't exist yet. The alien delegates exchanged glances that conveyed volumes of information through their advanced communication methods. They were beginning to understand that they were not dealing with a typical rebellion or territorial dispute. This was something far more fundamental. What do you want? Thought Prime Zerath asked finally. Freedom, Jake answered. Complete independence for all human territories. The right to live, grow, and explore without asking permission from alien governments. The right to defend ourselves against anyone who tries to put us back in cages. And if we refuse? Admiral Kethmore asked. Colonel Sam Turner smiled and activated another holographic display. This one showed the current status of alien military forces across the galaxy. The markers indicating damaged, destroyed, or captured facilities covered nearly half the map. Then we continue doing what we've been doing, Sam said calmly. Except we'll do it faster, more efficiently, and with less concern for minimizing collateral damage. Dr. Alex Carter added his own disturbing observation. You should understand that human capabilities under stress are still growing. Every battle teaches us new things about ourselves. Every challenge makes us stronger and more creative. We're not the same species you enslaved 30 years ago. The alien delegates requested a recess to consult with their governments, while they transmitted urgent messages across space using their instantaneous communication networks. The human delegation calmly waited in their quarters. Do you think they'll agree to our terms? Dr. Rachel Stone asked Jake. They'll agree, Jake replied with certainty, because they're finally beginning to understand what they're really afraid of. What's that? Rachel asked. Jake looked out the window at the stars where human ships were patrolling the edges of the neutral zone. They're not afraid of our weapons or our tactics. They're afraid of what we represent. For millions of years, they've built a civilization based on the idea that intelligence means conformity, and progress means following established rules. He turned back to his team. We've proven that idea wrong. We've shown the entire galaxy that there's another way to think, another way to solve problems, another way to exist. And once that idea spreads to other species, their whole system of control collapses. The negotiations would continue for several more days, but the outcome was already certain. The galaxy had learned that when humans say no more, they mean it. The age of alien dominance was ending, and the age of human independence was about to begin. The only question remaining was whether the transition would be peaceful, or whether the aliens would force humanity to demonstrate just how dangerous the nightmare species could become when pushed beyond their breaking point. 1 year after Jake Morrison's declaration echoed across human space, the galaxy bore little resemblance to the ordered civilization that had once enslaved humanity. The rigid hierarchies that had controlled countless worlds for millions of years were crumbling, as new ideas spread like wildfire among species that had forgotten how to think for themselves. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Indomitable, watching human children play in the ship's hydroponic gardens through the observation windows. The ship was massive, built from the salvaged remains of dozens of alien vessels and redesigned using human engineering principles that emphasized adaptability over pure efficiency. The children laughing and running through the gardens had never known slavery or the fear of alien masters. They were growing up free in a galaxy that had learned to respect human independence through hard experience. Some were the sons and daughters of rebels who had died fighting for freedom, while others were refugees rescued from alien prison camps during the early days of the uprising. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Kepler system, reported Communications Officer Jenny Walsh. A young woman with bright red hair who had joined the fleet after her home colony was liberated from Zephyrian control. Put it through, Morrison replied. The holographic display showed Engineer Kelly Brooks standing in what had once been the most heavily fortified Zephyrian stronghold in human space. Behind her, human workers were busy converting alien military equipment into tools for peaceful construction and exploration. Jake, you need to see this, Kelly said with excitement in her voice. We've finished analyzing the quantum drive technology we captured from the Andromedan research station. Our people think they can improve the efficiency by 40% using modifications that their original designers never considered. Morrison smiled. The pattern had repeated itself across hundreds of captured alien installations. Human engineers and scientists didn't just copy alien technology, they enhanced it in ways that left alien experts baffled. The improvements came from approaching familiar problems with completely fresh perspectives and refusing to accept that existing solutions were the only possible solutions. Dr. Alex Carter's voice came through the communication system from his research facility on New Terra, the world that had been rebuilt from the ashes of alien genocide. Admiral, I have the final report on our psychological analysis of the former slave species. The results are remarkable. The display shifted to show Alex in his laboratory, surrounded by alien volunteers from dozens of different species. These beings had once served the Galactic Coalition as willing subjects, but exposure to human concepts of individual freedom and creative thinking had changed them in fundamental ways. What we're seeing is unprecedented in galactic history, Alex explained. Species that had been stable for millions of years are experiencing rapid psychological evolution. They're developing individual creativity, questioning authority, and forming new social structures based on cooperation rather than domination. Morrison nodded. The transformation wasn't limited to formerly enslaved species. Even members of the ruling alien civilizations were beginning to change as human ideas spread throughout their populations. The Andromedan crystal beings had started producing art that celebrated individual expression over collective harmony. Young Zephyrians were questioning the rigid military hierarchies that had defined their culture for millennia. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant contacted the flagship from her position near the Galactic Rim, where her nomadic fleet continued to patrol human space. Admiral, we just finished escorting another group of refugee ships to the New America colony. That makes 12 new settlements this month. Lisa's fleet had evolved into something that amazed even human observers. Her ships could survive anywhere in space, building everything they needed from raw materials found in asteroid fields and nebulae. They had become masters of adaptation, able to transform any environment into a place where humans could thrive. How many people total? Morrison asked. Just over 2 million in the new colonies, plus another 3 million aboard the nomad fleets, Lisa replied. And the numbers are growing faster every month as more humans escape from the remaining alien-controlled territories. Dr. Rachel Stone appeared on another communication channel from her facility on Luna, where she continued her groundbreaking research into human psychological capabilities. Admiral, I've been analyzing reports from across human space, and I think we need to discuss what's happening to our species. Rachel's research had revealed something that both excited and concerned human leadership. The extreme stress of the rebellion and the subsequent challenges of building an independent civilization were causing humans to develop enhanced mental capabilities that went beyond normal human limits. Our brains are adapting to handle complex, multidimensional problems that would overwhelm normal human cognitive capacity, Rachel explained. We're seeing improvements in pattern recognition, creative problem solving, and the ability to coordinate large-scale group activities without hierarchical command structures. Morrison understood the implications. Humanity wasn't just winning its freedom from alien oppression. It was evolving into something new and more capable. The species that emerged from this crucible would be fundamentally different from the humans who had first left Earth. Centuries ago, Major Danny Clark reported from his position commanding the defense forces of the liberated prison worlds. Admiral, we've completed the integration of former prisoners into our military structure. I have to tell you, these people are remarkable. They've developed tactical thinking abilities that surpass anything I learned in formal military training. Danny's forces had become legendary throughout the galaxy for their ability to win battles against impossible odds using strategies that violated every established principle of warfare. They thought like individuals but fought like a single organism, adapting their tactics in real time based on battlefield conditions. Colonel Sam Turner added his report from the Intelligence Division that monitored alien government activities across the galaxy. The Galactic Council is fragmenting, Jake. 3 more species have declared independence from the Coalition this month. The old system of centralized control is collapsing as member species decide they want to govern themselves. The rebellion that had started with human slaves demanding freedom had grown into a galaxy-wide transformation that was destroying millions of years of established order. Species that had never questioned their place in the hierarchy were suddenly discovering the concepts of individual rights and self-determination. Morrison walked to the observation deck where he could see Earth's sun shining in the distance. Humanity's birth world was free again, its orbital installations rebuilt and its people thriving under their own government. The blue and green planet that had given birth to the nightmare species was once again home to beings who refused to accept limitations imposed by others. Open a general communication channel to all human vessels and installations, Morrison ordered, across human space. Millions of people on hundreds of worlds and thousands of ships received his transmission. These were the descendants of slaves who had broken their chains through courage, creativity, and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. My fellow humans, Morrison began, his words carried by quantum transmitters to every corner of human civilization. 1 year ago, we said no more to alien oppression. Today I want to talk about what we've built from that decision. He paused, looking out at the stars where human ships patrolled space that had been won through sacrifice and determination. We have created something new in this galaxy, not just independent human worlds, but a way of thinking and living that celebrates the potential of every individual. We have shown that intelligence doesn't require conformity, that strength doesn't require domination, and that civilization doesn't require the surrender of personal freedom. Throughout human space, people stopped their work to listen to their leaders' words. In the rebuilt colonies, in the nomad fleets, in the research stations and military outposts, humans who had never known slavery heard the story of how their species had transformed from victims into the most respected and feared civilization in the galaxy. But our greatest achievement is not what we've accomplished for ourselves, Morrison continued. It's what we've made possible for others. Across the galaxy, species that had been silent for millions of years are finding their voices. Civilizations that had accepted their place in rigid hierarchies are discovering they have the right to choose their own destiny. The transmission reached beyond human space to alien worlds where oppressed populations were learning that rebellion was possible and that freedom could be won through courage and determination. To any species listening to this message, remember what you have seen. Remember that no matter how powerful your oppressors seem, they can be defeated by beings who refuse to accept defeat. Remember that creativity is stronger than conformity, and that the desire for freedom is the most powerful force in the universe. Morrison's final words carried a warning that would be remembered throughout galactic history. And, to any who would threaten humanity or our allies, understand this. We are no longer the broken slaves you once knew.